Hi, you guys. Yeah,
Hi.
good to see Peter. Thank you.
Emma was
I'm Josh.
Sam. Okay, so they're going to tell you about this equipment for 5 minutes, and then we'll do the round table in the conference room.
I'll be quick. It's cool. As a snow monitoring group, we really are showing off today, I guess is the best way to say it. But
Yep, we're going to give you a very brief overview of the Vermont Mesonet project. I'll provide a little bit more thorough instruction downstairs, but Sam is our meteorological technician that's been working to develop this statewide weather monitoring network with us called the Vermont Mesonet. And this is some of our meteorological monitoring infrastructure that we have deployed here, and Sam's going to give a little bit more background about it, and then I'll talk to you more about the project inside.
yeah. So this is the mini version, the pocket version of actually what we're installing. So our towers are going to be 10 meters high, and the first one is
So
finished.
this will go on a tower,
Yes.
30 feet.
Yes, absolutely. And this is just a small sample of what we actually have. So we only have 4 instruments here.
This
We
is what the
have
final station will look like.
over on this end, we have
wow.
a rain gauge that's kind of sitting on the ground, and it's weighted, so it's able to measure every single drop of water. And it's also heated, so in case the snow builds up, it can melt it off so that we can get constant snow measurements and rain measurements. We also on this end have a sonic snow dust sensor. So it's just like a dolphin basically, which is really cool. So it just listens for where the snow hits, gets the return, and is able to measure the snow height. Which
That
there's
can measure the snow height?
Yeah.
That's cool.
yeah, it is super cool. They also work well with water, which is what their initial thing was for. But yeah, they were like, we can use it for snow. And up here we have a propeller anemometer. This one is specifically for alpine so that we don't have to worry as much about freezing, so we can get consistent measurements. And the real tower will have a dual wind sensor. So one will be sonic and one will be this one. So that no matter what, if there's a failure,
Yeah.
we'll be able to get consistent measurements. We want to make sure that our station, no matter what, is going to be fully robust, off-grid, so that when the real weather strikes, we'll be prepared. And then in here, we have our one of the temperature sensors, and it's actually in an aspirated shield. The aspirated shield is not on just because we only have one battery out here. So that's going to draw up any temperature so we get realistic air temperature. We'll also have some relative humidity sensors, pressure. Like I said, this is just the sweet little sampler that we have.
That's incredible.
Thank you.
Pretty economical too. I mean, it's all contained.
Oh, it's very, very contained, which is awesome, but very intricate at the same time. And all of this will actually run off of a data logger in here, which we kind of have to protect for, the purpose of water. And that's the brains. So everything that operates off of this tower, plus the additional sensors, will be running just from this one small box. And it will be reported to us real time. So every 5 minutes, we will be able to get data in, reported out to any sort of entities that need it, like emergency management, National Weather Service, our internal servers, and it'll also be made available to the public.
So just oh, that's really cool. So the information here I could get.
Yes, that's correct.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so we'll be working on visuals. This is just the rough estimate. So yeah, you can see right now it's about 29 degrees outside, or -1 Celsius. We have accumulated, since we've set this up, 0.46 millimeters of precipitation. But our snow measurement is actually bordering 1.5 inches already.
Really?
Yes. So you can actually see on this plot how it's been increasing.
Yeah.
And this is just a really elementary version of the plots that we will be able to produce. As we increase our staff and increase our stations, we'll be able to fill out our products more.
That is really cool.
Thank you. So
That is amazing.
that's just our sampler, but
So the ones that'll be out there will have more instruments.
way more instruments.
Yeah.
Yeah, way more. We'll have 3 measures of temperature from 9 meters to 2 meters. We'll have pressure. We'll have 2 different ways to measure solar. We'll have our precipitation. We'll also be measuring soil samples down to 0.5 meter, so that we'll also be able to have flash flood detections for soil saturations along with our precipitation rates.
That's great.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. We'll be kicking it off.
Why. This is great, Sam.
Thank you. I'm a real nerd about it, so I'm glad I got to share a little bit with you.
Yeah.
But that's just a general spiel, and you guys, we can and I'll go get more. But I do want to say I couldn't have done this also without my intern who helped assist me, Liam. He braved this snow for me.
Well, we had a good day to do this, actually.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But,
Well, it really makes a difference. It's really so nice to be here.
Do you, we thought maybe we could just go around and do quick introductions and then you can speak for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we're basically doing a lightning round, 4 lightning rounds. So
Right.
the order will be Leahy Institute, the Sea Grant Program with Anne, CIROH with Beverly and Keith, and Snowtowel with Josh.
Yes.
So-
I'll just briefly talk about the Vermont Mesonet. There's a part
Yeah.
outside that I need to still talk about.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Why don't you each just go and say your names quickly and then we'll hear from Peter.
Ann Jefferson,
Yeah.
Director of Lake Champlain.
Yeah.
I'm Allison Spazek, Flood Resilience Educator with Lake Champlain.
I'm Josh Benish, Associate Director with the Water Resources Institute.
Hannah Fisher, I do communications for the Water Resources Institute. Emma Spett with the Leahy Institute for Rural Partnerships. Sam Bowler, Senior Meteorological Technician for the Water Resources Institute. Beverly Wemple, I'm the Director of the Water Resources Institute.
Chief Jennings, I'm the Director of Research at the Water Resources Institute.
Trisha Coates, Director of the Leahy Institute for Rural Partnerships.
And I'm Rebecca Ellis. I'm the State Director for Senator Welch.
Well, I am so excited to be here. But where's Patrick? It really,
He'll get a full report.
well, that's good. But I do want to acknowledge him. When I first came to Vermont, the first campaign I worked on was his first campaign for the United States Senate. So I met him in Marcel when he was running the first time in an uphill and impossible to win race. And look at all that he's done for Vermont and for the university and for science. So having his seat, I feel a special responsibility to carry on the tremendous work that he's done. And, in my job these days, you don't get to do something useful very often, but every once in a while you do. And this is useful. It's really terrific. There's an enormous attack on science around the country. And there's been a savage assault on scientific research, on medical research, and a real assault on the budgets. You can't have sustainable science, and we need it, without sustainable research funding. So it's a hard time, but it's a really, really important time for all of us who have some responsibility and opportunity to be helpful to make sure we maintain that commitment. And your job, obviously, is the hard work of actually showing how this is really useful and beneficial to the well-being of our citizens. And it gives me a lot of confidence to be here and to hear specifically from you about the work that you're doing. And it allows me to just make a compelling case to my colleagues. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you, and I appreciate you all taking the time to have this roundtable discussion.
Great, thank you. Well, I think we all, on behalf of all of us in UVM, we appreciate your being a champion of science and research, not only of these programs, but of what happens here at UVM. And I think one of the ways that the Leahy Institute has tried to be party to that promotion of science is by helping faculty and staff do their work in the community and to show the practical applications and need of science. And so it was really wonderful to connect with Josh last year around this time. And Josh came forward with a proposal for a mesonet planning process and early implementation. And it was made clear from a colleague that we all have out in Wisconsin that Vermont could really benefit from having better weather monitoring. We got that contact from Wisconsin after the third flood in July in a row. So my colleague Emma and I and our team, we really try to really understand what needs are out in the community. And we really just champion this amazing capacity here at UVM among these experts, among these researchers, among these data and technicians, and how those capacities can add to what's happening. So that's what we do, and we appreciate your office's support for our ongoing funding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Vermont's one of 12 states in the country that currently does not have a mesonet, one of these networks of weather stations that observe weather phenomena at the mesoscale, so things like thunderstorms and floods and snow.
So only 12
states?
states?
Only 12 states in the country that don't have a mesonet right now. Yeah, Vermont's one of them. New York, right across the lake from us, is a very sophisticated mesonet with 126 stations, all reporting data every 5 minutes in real time. And also have a robust soil moisture monitoring network as well. That's really helpful for forecasting flash flooding events that come across certain areas. And so we really need the type of instrumentation distributed across the state. We're hoping to have 21 of these higher end prototype stations. We have our initial prototype station that we're installing in Lindenville this spring, and Sam has been leading that effort. And we have a ribbon cutting ceremony on May 5th at 1 p.m. up at the Caledonia County Fairgrounds. We have an invitation. Cool. Therefore, we are able to attend during the state work period. We're trying to be able to get all of this enthusiasm and energy. We have the Secretary of Agriculture and the head of the National Weather Service Burlington office speaking at the event. We're trying to kind of showcase the need for this network, not only for emergency preparedness, but also for agricultural planning across the state.
And I'll just add that the Mesonet conversation happened through the consortium that we're a part of. So there's 3 rural partnership institutes, one here, one at Auburn University in Alabama, and one at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And a significant investment from the Wisconsin Rural Partnerships Institute went towards the build out of the WiscoNet, which is what they called it. And so that was the team that reached out to us following the July 2024 floods with great concern. And an offer of support to help us build out our Mesonet, which Josh took the lead on. One other thing to mention is that we try and center student experience in every project that we fund. So there are undergraduate and graduate students, researchers, interns, courses participating in every project. And one of the great examples of that is the work that Beverly did this past year. If you want to speak about it. It volleyed it.
Thanks.
So maybe I'll acknowledge the Leahy Institute first, because they have really facilitated funding between UVM and partners across the state. And when the Leahy Institute announced one of its first rounds of funding, we were approached at the Water Resources Institute by the Vermont Rural Water Association, which provides technical assistance to communities across the state to operate their drinking water and wastewater treatment plants. They needed data in order to create justifications for funding applications. They wanted to know more about the demographics of the workforce, and they wanted to explore pathways for UVM to provide the future water workforce. So the Leahy Institute funded a 1-year grant for us to conduct that survey. We also did intensive interviews with 15 operators across the state.
Operators of what?
At drinking water and wastewater treatment plants.
Oh, I see,
And took about 65 students on field trips associated with classes to water treatment plants.
Really? That's great.
The survey results will be out in about 2 weeks. The student working on that will defend his thesis on April 20th. We should have a full formal report in June on that. The findings are, in a nutshell, that our water workforce is really aging. People working at these plants are getting older, and there's no clear pathway for a workforce in the future. There's a lot of optimism among those who work in these places, but a lot of concern about where the future is going to come from, and a lot of volunteers that are aging out in communities that can't afford to replace them. The students that we took into plants, only about 19% of them, we surveyed them before and after visits, only about 19% of them had ever even considered working at a water treatment plant. When they came out of these visits, about 55% of them said just the 1 2-hour trip influenced them to think about it.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Check this out. 61% of them said that the trip to the plant inspired them to work in a rural setting.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Why do you think that is?
I think that they interacted with these people in the plants, heard these people talking about how gratifying it was to work in their communities and how concerned they were about the future of the workforce. And our students at UVM are sort of action makers. They want to make a change. and they want to work in
Mhm.
communities. So we have a lot of really nuanced quotes from them too, and it's just really inspiring. So our next step is really to work on faculty cohort to
Mhm.
build awareness among the faculty. Some of the operators that we interviewed, a few of them had college degrees and said they'd never encountered this workforce sector in their higher education. By my estimate, I did a pull of data this morning. We have about 2,000 students currently enrolled in UVM in disciplines related to the environment or community development. So if you do kind of rough math, we graduate about 500 students a year in
Mhm.
those fields. If we could capture 10% of them to stay in Vermont
To stay,
and work
it's
in
a
the
big,
water workforce,
we need,
50 students every
Yeah.
year coming out of this university with undergraduate degrees, but with the sort of skill sets that would be needed.
oh, that would be so beneficial, wouldn't it?
So it's
Thank you.
really a kudos to the Leahy Institute for providing that seed funding and just raising awareness across the state of the potential for our state land-grant university to serve its needs.
So that's really very, very gratifying.
I'm gonna love it.
Seed grant.
This program does a lot of educational and outreach work too.
Yeah, so Lake Champlain Sea Grant is one of 34 Sea Grant programs, and thanks to Senator Leahy, Lake Champlain is a great lake and still is a great lake for the purposes of the Sea Grant program. So we benefit from that. Our mission is
Water's good. Yeah. I'm
is
sorry.
it's okay. To develop and share science-based knowledge that benefits the communities, environments, and economies of the Lake Champlain Basin. So we serve both the Vermont and the New York portions of the basin, and we serve the whole watershed, not just the lake and the lakeshore communities. We work in 4 focus areas. We do a lot of work, as Beverly said, in environmental literacy and workforce development. We take about 5,000 K-12 students either out to their local streams or out to the lake
You do,
every
so
year.
it's elementary school kids.
Starting in about 5th grade,
Yeah.
particularly, we love to take people out on the Marcel and the CIROH. So we do trips out there 2 days a week with the students starting, I think last week was our first trip of the year,
Really?
all the way until it
You were
starts
out
to get too
last
cold. Well, I wasn't, but our staff were with kids.
That was cold.
It was cold.
So I didn't know the Marcel was an icebreaker.
I think that we just managed to get the ice out of the lake. We also do healthy coastal ecosystems and sustainable fisheries. And then our focus today really is resilient communities and economies. So I'll just take a minute to share an example of research that we funded in this space, and then pass to Allison to talk about the outreach and extension work that she does. So picking up on this theme of kind of instrumentation and data to answer questions, in that poster in the back, we funded a research buoy in Lake Champlain, a new buoy that has sensors that run all the way from the lake surface to the deep part of the main lake. And the question our researchers were interested in is, how do wind patterns drive the upwelling of deep water from the lake up to the surface? Because when that happens, it can bring up nutrients that lead to things like algae blooms and other changes for the biology and the water quality.
Thanks.
And so the researchers were able to show that while these wind patterns are producing upwelling in some parts of the lake, even close by areas were responding differently and moving differently with really complex
So
flow
that
patterns
you
of the
know
lake.
where and when the upwelling occurs, what's the benefit of that?
Well, so we're trying to think about how climate change and warming temperatures and shifting wind patterns are going to change the frequency of upwelling patterns and implications in the lake. Because if we're trying to measure the impact of all of the policy that we're doing to reduce nutrient loading into the lake, these are sort of uncontrollable events that may shift the impact that we're actually achieving through all of our work in the watershed. And so having a better understanding of what their effects are for the nutrients at the surface of the lake and the algae blooms is really important. So I'll pass to Allison to talk about outreach.
Yeah, so moving from research to more of translating that science to serve Vermonters. My role is flood resilience educator. So I primarily work on education and outreach with municipal officials around Vermont. So we have a lot of small towns that are often volunteer-based governing. And so what I do is I show up to a lot of planning commission meetings, select board meetings, conservation commission meetings, to provide information, answer
But you like go to
questions.
select board meetings?
I do.
So you're really going out into
Yes,
local.
yeah. So
Yeah.
sometimes they're online, sometimes I drive to wherever they are, but primarily providing outreach on river corridors and floodplain management and public policy supporting flood resilience. And so a lot of this work has focused on Vermont's recently passed Flood Safety Act. So that is going to change the way river corridors are regulated statewide to try to make our communities more resilient. And so a lot of towns have questions about what this means for them and what kind of strategies can they take to go beyond state regulations to try to improve flood resiliency.
Mm-hmm.
So I show up to a lot of meetings and I provide a PowerPoint presentation and answer their questions, and then, pass them along to.
So you're disseminating the knowledge you're getting from the research.
Yes, yeah.
That's right.
So some of that comes from UVM, some of it comes from the Department of Environmental Conservation at the state. So I work really closely with my state colleagues and then folks at the Nature Conservancy too. And so
kind of a public-private.
Yeah. So it's been a great collaboration
Yeah.
so far, and certainly we're building relationships. It takes time because Vermont has so many small communities, and but in this past year, I was looking at numbers, and we've engaged with over 400 municipal officials, and I think it was over 70 different towns that those
That's a
people
lot.
come from.
Yeah.
So it's kind of all corners of the state because flooding affects all corners of the state. And so that's been a lot of the work that I've been doing in terms of kind of translating research and science to.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So one of the cool things about Sea Grant is that we both fund the research and we translate research funded by lots of different organizations and done by lots of different organizations right directly out into the communities. And we're also a long-running and stable program so that we can become a trusted partnership for these select boards or businesses and really become the place that they come to seek information before they make decisions that affect their community.
That's fantastic. I mean, I'd like to go to that select board meeting.
No. Sorry.
All right. And I am passing to Keith and Beverly.
Got it. Our select
Keith,
board,
yeah.
we're debating 2 stop signs.
What select board are you?
Richmond. I'm not on the select board, but I was on the Richmond Transportation Committee, so there.
That's
I have a lot of bad habits, but one of them is taking notes for a presentation and then getting rid of them and refitting stuff. So I was a UVM undergrad, left Burlington, didn't want to, because there were no jobs for a new graduate or not really jobs I was interested in. And the reason I'm back here is because of the Water Resources Institute and because of the Cooperative Institute for Research and Operations and Hydrology. So that's just one data point, mostly an anecdote. And as you were saying before with Senator Leahy, former Senator Leahy, CIROH is really part of his collaborative bipartisan legacy with Richard Shelby, which we very much greatly appreciate that you're continuing with Senator Peter from Alabama. So support that you two have shown to water research and weather research and those enterprises has been really helpful for us as UVM. And one of the notes I did take was about the Office of Water Prediction, their annual budget, and the CIROH annual budget. Together, it's about $130 million per year, which is a pretty big number. But in terms of flood and drought disaster impacts, when NOAA was still collecting these data, on an annual basis, that's about 13 or 14 billion. So we're only spending billion would be. So we're only spending about 1% of the impact cost on actually responding to, predicting, communicating, all these things that could potentially save lives. And floods and droughts can cost over 100 people's lives lost annually. And so CIROH, I think, is doing a lot of work to try to remedy that. Particularly here at UVM, we've been a great beneficiary of the CIROH program. Nearly 30 projects in the past 5 years at the University of Vermont. About $16 million in total has come to the university, and that's funded 11 different principal investigators. It's touched about 70 different faculty and staff at the university and helped train 30 students and postdocs. So in
Mhm.
total, that CIROH money has influenced about 100 employee and trainees at the University of Lehi. I don't have time to talk about each of the 29 projects, but I'll go over a few of the
Well,
teams.
you know, that link to the
Yeah.
Senator Leahy set up with Alabama, and then of course we had Wisconsin, and that's really proven to be. Tammy Baldwin has been a big advocate, Senator Baldwin. Yeah, so that connection, that developing that relationship has been, I think, beneficial to the sustainability of the program.
Yeah. And I should note before I jump into these things that a lot of them are Vermont-based or New England, but have really continental and global implications in terms of the research it's driving. One of them is about floodplains, so how we monitor them, how we map them, how we can integrate those data into the computer models and make flood predictions so we can more accurately say how fast the water is going to move through a system, where it's going to be, and when. And then there's also been a lot of good work at UVM on water quality. So using national water model data as inputs for predicting turbidity in streams, so how much sediment is going to be in there, which affects a whole bunch of different issues. And then also harmful algal blooms as well. So trying to better predict where they are and when. And another major one.
So you predicted where, whether, and when. So just on a concrete implementation basis, who gets that information and what do they do with it?
It depends. So as a research project, a lot of these are, you build out the infrastructure, you write the paper, but CIROH is unique in that it has the operational focus. So a lot of times, even though we might not want to admit it, a lot of research does happen in a vacuum. And so CIROH and the Water Resources Institute and all the other fine people at this table, I don't think work in that way. And so it's about getting in the hands of the National Weather Service and the Office of Water Prediction, and then UVM's biggest thing is working with the community. So and Sea Grant and the Leahy Institute, I mean, they're major drivers of, we're not just producing information and basic knowledge, but we're sharing it with the people that need it and communicate it in a way that's effective.
That's great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm probably running out of my time, so I'll close with a thought that kind of connects back to the beginning, which is this concept in transportation safety called Vision Zero, where you can get the number of traffic fatalities down to zero in the community. So that's driving, that's pedestrians, that's cyclists. And the way you do that is through better planning, better mapping, better implementation, better maintenance. But the fundamental goal is we can get these things down to zero. And I think the same concept applies to flood and drought prediction, preparedness, and response in the United States. So we're only currently spending 1% of the damages on research and operations, but I think it could be much larger because, I mean, we're the biggest economy in the history of the known world, and we can do a lot more to get to Vision Zero for flood and drought, and we can do that through better research and communication.
That's great.
Quick
go ahead.
supplement to that on the who would get an algal bloom forecast and need it, like our departments of health close beaches when they're algal bloom. So getting a forecast out on algal blooms can serve communities from a public health standpoint. I don't know if you know this, but several years ago, the cover of National Geographic showed the major algal bloom in Lake Erie that closed down Toledo's water supply.
Oh no, I don't remember
Water
that.
treatment plants that take their water out of lakes that supply water, and algal bloom will make it potentially impossible to treat water for drinking water.
God, it's
So
terrible.
this capacity that we're building to translate water model forecasts into water quality forecasts, and we built a lot of that capacity at UVM over like 10 years of National Science Foundation funding on water has the potential of national impact.
Yeah,
For
and that's something. Yeah.
Water quality forecasting.
So you predict a bloom, and then that allows public health authorities to quarantine the beach.
Vermont also is great.
But obviously, ultimately, we want to prevent the bloom, right? So you're getting data.
And there's a lot of work happening here on that, and the point that Anne was making about the buoy and the upwelling, you asked about the upwelling, like the science that we're doing here on understanding both the sourcing coming off of the watershed, but also this internal sourcing, turnover of water in lakes.
And a lot of things that we're doing are multifunctional too. Like we funded the buoy to understand these nutrient dynamics in the lake, but now the buoy is streaming data, and the National Weather Service office locally looks at the data from the buoy when they do the recreational forecasts for boater safety. And thousands of anglers a year go look at the buoy data online to figure out where the big fish are hitting, right? Which depends on kind of what the deep lake is doing from the shallow lake. So there's a lot of ways we can bring data and make it useful to every day.
So what's the deepest part of the lake?
It's 400 and close to 450 feet. Yeah.
That's pretty deep.
So I'll talk about Snowtel now. In comparison to, we're working on building out the statewide network that we call the Mesonet that would be geographically distributed. We're also now we're partnering with the University of New Hampshire and the Cooperative Institute in Maine and other partners across Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine to advocate for this need of developing a regional snow monitoring network that would be similar to Snowtel that exists out in the western states. In the western states, Snowtel is really used for water supply forecasting, but here we really need it to be able to better predict how melting snow is resulting into flood potential downstream. And we have, most of the precipitation that falls in the state falls in these high elevation areas. We sometimes get over 10 feet of snow on the top of Mount Mansfield. When we see flooding events like the one we saw in December 2023, where we have a large amount of snow up on the mountains and it rains for a day, the National Weather Service River Forecast Center is kind of like in the dark of like predicting exactly how the river systems are going to respond to that. So we're kind of working very closely with the Snowtel West office and staff out there to engage people locally here, stakeholders across the whole region on what a regional snow monitoring network should look like across the Northeast. And we've also kind of worked through geospatial design, identifying where these locations would be, mostly looking at high elevations. And again, that's in contrast to the Mesonet stations, which would be at low elevations. And because of the complex topography that we have in the States, having this observation along an elevation gradient is critically important. And so we are kind of nearing the end of our existing feasibility study that was funded in FY23, and thanks to your support for FY26, we're continuing the process to be able to develop a foundation for the snow monitoring network here across Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And we now have a proposal in to have funding the development of the network into FY27. So we're hoping to be able to install between 10 and 30 stations here in Vermont, between 30 and 90 stations across the region. And again, this project has been led by UNH, and Jean Shaheen has been kind of the champion of it. And we appreciate your support working with her, and also the main congressional delegation to be able to move this initiative forward so that we can ensure the safety in terms of flood forecasting for the public, but also support local recreation economies as well around snow recreation in the state.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's exciting. I mean, you guys are working hard.
We're working hard.
Well, and it's really good. I mean, there's so many bad news stories about people losing their grants in the middle of their in the middle of the research. The funding's been taken away, and it's really a setback. And what is clear from your descriptions of everything that you're doing, it's not as though if you turn out the lights, you can just flip the switch and turn it back on 3 months later or 2 years later. There's so much foundational work that has to be done to get a research project going, setting up the equipment, or so much foundational work of establishing trusted relationships with people you're going to work with. So much foundational work to get students interested, and then doing all the concrete work to get them out to a project site, and then have them meet people, and then follow through on that. So it's just a wonderful experience for me to be with people who are actually still doing it and haven't had the axe fall. And I work with Katie Britton, Tammy, to keep the axe from falling. It's really important. We can't forsake just commitment to the reality of the science and research are just essential elements of what a strong and confident society does. You don't know what the outcome of the research will be, but you do know doing research is really important because it leads to outcomes that you can't anticipate. Yeah, and it's good. Senator Leahy was very smart in his usual way with he and Senator Shelby, Republican and Democrat, both knew that there was a mutual advantage to the sustainability of the program politically by teaming up together. So, that's one of the reasons I like you going out into communities with like these local officials where they get to see how the work is being done and what they get a stake in having access to that information to benefit the people they represent in their local communities. So this is all good.
I have a question for you
Mhm.
and your staff, because they're tagging along behind you all the time. When you've been out in communities over the last few years and hearing from communities about the pressures they face around flooding or other challenges, last summer's drought, I imagine you occasionally talk to communities who are dealing with infrastructure pressure.
Yeah, enormous. We've been
flood.
doing that today. We're in Johnson and Cambridge, and we're hearing about that.
Yeah, because we are a collection of people at UVM that work on water and climate pressures, what messages can you say to us that you're hearing out there that you want us to be thinking about?
Well, first of all, talking out in the communities, a lot of it's been about the flooding. And it's been about the aftermath of the flooding, and it's about trying to put the community back together after the flooding. And a lot of the frustration they have is the results of the wild weather that we're having. And of course, climate change is a 4-letter word now, so we can't say that. But the weather may have something to do with it. It's, we want. But what we're hearing about is just the real practical challenges of putting the community back together. But getting information, we were in Johnson, and we were getting some flood gauges that they can put upriver, and it really can make a timeliness difference for them when they can get a warning out to their own citizens. They had flooding where people were in houses on one of the streets there where people were coming in on canoes to rescue people, older folks who couldn't get out. And one of the things they're talking about too is the frustration that they have dealing with the bureaucracy, where the decisions are made so far away from the local community. That's a little bit different than what you face. So they're dealing with the consequences of wild weather, and we all know that that is something that has to be addressed by carbon emissions. And getting the data, you're doing that front end work that's so essential to help us try to mitigate that. But it's much more from the communities, and like the select board folks you have, they want to get that bridge opened. They want to get a bigger culvert to be able to accommodate the reality that the 100-year storm comes every 5 years now, so that's what we hear about.
Yeah, and I would add to that also what we hear quite a bit about is the need for technical assistance.
Right.
And
that's
so
right.
your
Yeah,
bill, the
exactly.
FEMA aid bill, tries to put more money into technical assistance to spread out to all the select boards that you're talking to, because every single project requires so much work to put it together, and really frequently takes 5 to 10 years, which sometimes is longer than the lifespan of the members of the select board. So I think that's another thing that we're hearing quite a bit about.
Yeah.
We're meeting today with the Lamoille County Planning Commission, and so they kind of provide that long bridge to piece together these projects that in Jeffersonville started in 2011. And
So I'll
Right.
put in a pitch for Sea Grant as a source of technical
Yes.
assistance, and
Mhm.
we're seeing, more and more, not just in the Lake Champlain Basin, but all around the country. Sea Grants are sort of inundated with requests for communities to help, and we've had stable funding and bipartisan congressional support, which is great. But in the current environment, stable, i.e., flat funding, increasing demand and increasing costs really means a shrinking capacity to actually be able.
Yeah.
I could use 3 Allisons, right? We do a watershed forestry partnership that is working with watershed groups and native tree nurseries to get trees along the riverbanks
Very basic
in Vermont.
stuff.
And we'd like to be able to keep that going. Right now, we're not sure we're going to be able to.
Right.
If we could get increased funding, we'd really be able to do so much more in all the parts of Vermont and in the New York portion of Mason.
Yeah. No, there's work to be done. That's the kind of work we should be doing. And it's good for our communities. It's good for our future. But, you know, the effects of the wild weather they're really enormous. And, you know, everyday people don't, they don't have time to do the research you're doing, okay? So you have to have an infrastructure, and that requires government funding so that people can occupy the jobs you have where your work is to get out there and do this. And on behalf of all of us who are not scientists. But the effects are, they're everywhere, you know, and that includes red states as well as blue states. It's not a red state, blue state deal. You know, insurance rates now for homeowners in like Florida and Texas they're really an affordability crisis there. We have that to some extent here, but not like they do there. And people respond to that because they're paying much more for insurance than they are for the mortgage in many cases. And then they're losing insurance. You've seen that in California, but that has a lot to do with the wild weather. And the wild weather here is different than the wild weather in California. But I mean, just think of all the flooding we've had. The last 3 years, on July 14th, we've had major floods in Vermont. Yeah. So it's important what you're doing, and you know that's why I'm so grateful to Senator Leahy and Senator Shelby, and you know my job is to try to carry that on and make certain that you keep doing your work.
Well, thank you for taking time to visit your state university.
Well, I have fond memories. You know, my first wife, Joan, was the dean here, arts and science.
We take our role really seriously, the joint role of research, education, and outreach. That's the mission of UVM. We produce a lot of talented people that go on. Josh is a graduate also. They go on from UVM to do big things. And we consider ourselves like this ecosystem of activity that's addressing needs in our state.
No, you are. And it's what I said, you know, a confident country understands that you have to invest in research, you have to invest in education, and you have to invest in things that pay off later, not necessarily now. But that has to be a sustainable commitment where there's confidence that when you make that commitment, it does produce real dividends that make life better for all of us. And, you know, people with your talent and interest can do that job. And most citizens have other jobs they do. But but this is an important part of what makes a society function and resilient. So, you know, it's really important. And a lot of us understand that in the public policy level, okay? But, you know, my job is to try to help advocate for policies and funding that make it possible for you to do your job. And our environment right now is challenging, but we've got to get back to it because it's always been sort of the secret of our success here in this country.
Tricia, do you want to say anything about your experience, like going from legislative management to university ecosystem?
I two quick thoughts. One is that UVM has recently created a number of these offices, institutes, and as I'm listening today, Beverly, I'm appreciating your role in particular around all this incredible capacity at UVM that we have, engineering, community development, so many colleges who can come around and wrap its arms around the state and provide flood information and support and technical assistance for towns and data services that are so needed. I think the institutes have helped UVM steward these federal resources in a really great way by making sure you know what's happening all around the university now in water. And that maybe wasn't always the case. Then I was just thinking, somebody said Florida and Texas, and you just mentioned that because a lot of the issues we're talking about here, so climate hazards to towns or the recreation economy, these sort of underpinnings of what we all are trying to deal with here in Vermont, still seem like issues that have an appeal that goes beyond partisan politics.
No, I think that's right.
Is that what you're still finding?
No, I'm finding that this is the heartache for me right now about what's going on in our country. We could be with people in California or Texas who are around a great waterway, right? They would be having the same concerns. So, or it's like with our healthcare system, enormous pressure on our hospitals, community hospitals, just to mention one thing. That's, if I talk to a senator from Indiana, and I'm talking about their pressures is the same. So the challenges that people face about affordability, about having access to the outdoors, about clean water, those are identical. It's not a red state, blue state deal, right? So if you approach it from what are the shared challenges we face, then it hopefully leads to a discussion. What are the shared steps we'll take to try to address those challenges? And that's what's broken about our political system. It's like we just have an argument about something where the outcome of the argument doesn't make a difference in solving any problem. But that's why your work is so important, because we do need the information. We need the foundational information that allows us to then say doing X is going to be helpful and Y isn't. So it is bipartisan. It's bipartisan. It's not even, it's universal. I mean, everybody needs healthcare, right? Everybody needs clean air. Everybody needs clean water. I mean, this is not about what your political orientation is. So that's why I think it's so important what you're doing.
Thank you.
No, thank you. It's really wonderful to be here. You talk to Patrick and tell him we were thinking of him. Yeah. No, I mean, it's, you just think how blessed we were to have him representing us for all those years and just integrating that kind of Vermont ethic that you all have that we want to sustain.
Okay, so just so that you know that you're a rock star too, you got up on the stage last May in front of the National CIROH Consortium and did your thing. We heard all week long. Wow.
There you go.
You're a rock star too.
Excellent. I kind of like that.